Hello everyone, and welcome back to another SCP reading. Just a little extra stuff before we start. I'm looking between doing fully edited content for SCP stuff or whatever else. If you check out our community tab, you can vote on the poll over there. But for now, let's go back to the actual matter at hand. We'll start off with SCP-088. Object Class: Safe. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-088 is to remain sealed in an airtight case at all times. The case is constructed of transparent acrylic plastic to resist the corrosive properties of SCP-088 secretions. In the event that SCP-088 should awaken from hibernation, any room that it is stored within should be constructed of durable plastics, rubber, and ceramics to hinder its ability to escape. Temperature of SCP-088's containment should not exceed 15 degrees Celsius, and any personnel entering containment must observe Level 4 Hazardous Materials Protocol and wear the appropriate protective gear at all times. Any personnel who do not observe proper containment protocols in the presence of SCP-088 or who show signs of physical mutation are to be demoted to D class and held for observation. Description: SCP-088 is a humanoid with reptilian features that appears to have been mummified in a languid posture. However, SCP-088 is merely in a state of hibernation from which it may recover if it is again exposed to a more habitable atmosphere than its current containment. Research has indicated that SCP-088 is approximately 6,000 years old and is capable of secreting a variety of hazardous biological compounds from its hands and mouth. Some of these substances could be of great strategic value if replicated, but until a means of extracting them without awakening SCP-088 is found, research into this area is on hold. SCP-088 was recovered with mummified remains of 23 beings sharing a similar morphology. However, none of these beings were alive, and examination suggests that they were originally human. Information obtained by Agents E-088-3 and E-088-7 on their subsequent mutation due to SCP-088 exposure corroborates this theory. Addendum: SCP-088 was recovered on 1930 blank from a subterranean complex below Los Angeles, California. The site was originally discovered by G.W. S. using a device he called a radio X-ray, which was a little more advanced than a mechanical dowsing rod. While S. Blank's methods were dubious, his discovery was not. After mapping a series of tunnels and gold deposits above the city, S. declared that he had found the lost city of the lizard people as described in the legends of Arizona's Hopi tribe. S. claims went as far as to be featured on the front page of Los Angeles Times on January 29, 1934, before the Foundation was able to verify his claims and silence Mr. S. The subterranean complex was not nearly as extensive as described in legend, and most of the artifacts discovered within were too corroded to provide significant information, save for a long message carved into the rock wall of an unfinished tunnel. For partial translation of this text, see document 088-14. Containment Breach Overview. In more than 70 years of containment, SCP-088 has only roused from its state of hibernation twice, breaching containment with a caustic fluid that dissolves most minerals and metals. During each time, multiple personnel were exposed to a second compound which SCP-088 uses to propagate itself. Affected personnel underwent a painful mutation under which they shared the physical characteristics of SCP-088. Those few who received a large dosage of this compound administered directly via mouth-to-mouth contact were changed the fastest and subsequently sacrificed themselves to protect 088 from harm. 088 has also demonstrated the ability to produce potent neurotoxins in liquid and gaseous forms to combat containment personnel. Containment during the second breach was reachieved by isolating SCP-088 and affected personnel in the facility and lowering the temperature. Affected personnel built a pedestal from discarded equipment, upon which SCP-088 took a recumbent position before slipping back into hibernation. The mutated personnel were neutralized at this point, and SCP-088 was returned to containment. The current strategy of lowered temperature and non-metallic containment has been successful in keeping SCP-088 isolated. SCP-088 was reclassified to safe status on November 19 blank. That is the end of SCP-088. On to SCP-089. Item number: SCP-089. Object Class: Euclid. See below. Special Containment Procedures. SCP-089 is stored in a special SCP-089 is stored in a special shipping container at Site-36 and monitored for locution events. Mobile Task Force Mu-89, consisting of personnel with advanced training in linguistics, psychology, and tactical diplomacy, has been established in order to respond to such locution events. Upon the occurrence of a locution event, Mobile Task Force Mu-89 is to translate and interpret the locution so as to identify the primary subjects of that triggering, herein designated as SCP-089-A and SCP-089-B. Then execute Protocols M8, which consists of the following steps. Transport SCP-089 to 089-A's location and explain Protocol M8 to 089-B, and, at such time as 089-B is prepared to voluntarily execute Protocol M8, render to 089-B any assistance as 089-B may request in connection with 089-B performing the following actions. Inserting 089-A into the cavity together with inflammable materials such as oiled wood or charcoal, then igniting them. The successful execution of Protocol M8 requires the voluntary compliance of 089-B in a sober and uncoerced state. Likewise, 089-A must be conscious and alert during the execution of the protocol. It is recommended that 089-B be restrained, although not sedated, following ignition so as to avoid interference with the completion of the protocol, as the process is extremely painful and fatal to 089-A. If 089-B refuses to voluntarily execute Protocol M8 in accordance with the aforementioned specifications, MTF Mu-89 is to explain the prospective consequences of failing to successfully complete the protocol and make every effort to persuade 089-B to cooperate. If MTF Mu-89's best efforts to persuade 089-B are unsuccessful, 089 is to be redesignated as Keter class and Protocol M9 is to be executed. Reference document 089-M9. The use of intimidation, threats, or mind-altering drugs or intoxicants in an effort to affect 089-B's free will, and any attempt to complete Protocol M8 without 089-B's participation or voluntary cooperation, or otherwise other than described, are strictly prohibited since these measures invalidate the attempted completion of the protocol and are known to intensify the severity of the attendant Type S event. It is also recommended, although not part of the or not a required part of Protocol M8, to cause the execution of Step 2 of Protocol M8 to be accompanied by the sounding of horns and percussion instruments, as doing so may mask the sounds made by 089-A during the execution of this protocol. Upon a successful execution of Protocol M8, the relative Type S event generally begins to abate within 7 hours. Description: SCP-089 is a glazed earthenware statue, approximately 3 meters in height, depicting a winged bull-headed humanoid with an open mouth. The front of the statue's torso is hinged and can be opened from the top to reveal a cavity approximately 0.6 cubic meters in volume, and can be locked from the outside. The rear of the statue bears an inscription in the Canaanite language, possibly Puntic, and there's a footnote here. Dr. Blank translated an excerpt of the text as Nightmare of Moloch, Moloch the Loveless, Mental Moloch, Moloch the Heavy Judger of Men. End of footnote. The statue dates from approximately the 2nd century BCE. On frequent occasions, sometimes separated by periods of excess of a century, the statue speaks. The mechanism by which these sounds are made is not understood, and the mouth of the statue does not move. The statue's locutions are in a Canaanite language, probably the same language as the inscription, and consist of the name or a description of SCP-089-A. A demand for Protocol M8 to be accomplished, together with instructions for doing so, and a description of the attendant Type S event in figurative language. Each locution event is followed within a period of 3 to 11 days by the commencement of a Type S event meeting the description given in the locution event, unless Protocol M8 has already been completed. Each Type S event is an epidemic, natural disaster, mass hysteria involving genocide or other massacres, or other event involving extensive damage to property and loss of human lives over a period of time that continues until Protocol M8 is successfully completed. In the case of each documented locution event, the attendant Type S event, while significant, is limited to a geographic area that does not directly affect 089-B. This has, in some documented cases, resulted in the pendency of a Type S event for an extended duration of time due to 089-B's unawareness of SCP-089 or of Protocol M8, or to SCP-089-B's unwillingness to undertake Protocol M8 in order to arrest the Type S event. For each locution event, SCP-089-A is a healthy, unblemished human infant or child between 8 months and 6 years of age, and SCP-089-B is that child's natural mother. In all documented cases at the time of the locution event, SCP-089-A and -B are each alive and healthy and experience a strong bond of trust and affection with each other. Following SCP-089-B's placement in SCP-089-A in the cavity and the ignition of the inflammable materials, SCP-089-A will burn and be destroyed over a period of 2 to 5 hours. Addendum 1. Memo to file from Dr. Garcia. While the role of SCP-089 in actually causing Type S events is unclear, experience has demonstrated that the prompt and precise application of Protocol M8 is effective in limiting the damage they do. Dr. Patel has speculated that SCP-089 does not cause Type S events, but merely anticipates them and provides a means to mitigate their effects. Addendum number 2. A partial list of documented Type S events that were terminated by means of Protocol M8, inclusive of documents completions of Protocol M8 that predate the Foundation's acquisition of custody of SCP-089 follows. Date of locution: March 21st, 1788. Description of the Type S event in locution event. The flames shall consume their houses, yea, and their markets and their temples, and all their dwelling places. They shall be destroyed. Type S event: Fire in city of blank blank. Outcome: Protocol M8 completed on day 29 after locution event. 66% of the city's buildings destroyed. Next, date of locution: December 2nd, 1850. Description of Type S event in locution event. The false prophets shall gather the multitude unto him, and cast them against their princes. They shall each of them be slain, and their fields made barren. Type S event: Large-scale Messianic-based peasant uprising in blank. Outcome: Protocol M8 completed on day 1,363 after locution event. Massacres associated with uprising and its suppression and attendant agricultural collapse account for at least blank million casualties. Next, date of locution of November 23rd, 1951. Description of Type S event in locution event. The earth shall tremble, and the seas shall arise and be cast against the earth, and the mountains shall vomit fire, its voice shall be darkness and death. Type S event: Earthquake and volcanic eruption in blank blank. Outcome: Protocol M8 executed within 31 hours of locution event. No tsunami resulted, although geological models had anticipated that one would occur from a seismic event in that area. No fatalities. Next, locution of event. November 7th, 1970. Description of Type S event in locution event. The rains shall scour the earth and sweep away man and his beasts and all his work. The deluge shall take them all. Type S event: Cyclone in blank. Outcome: Protocol M8 completed on day 49 after locution event. Casualties from flooding, disease, and starvation estimated at blank thousand. Next, date of locution event: April 4th, 2000 and blank. Description of Type S event in locution event. Data expunged. Type S event: Data expunged. Outcome: Ongoing. Protocol M8 not yet executed. And that is the end of SCP-089. On to SCP-090. Item number: SCP-090, Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Artifact is to be held in a secure bunker in the facility at Site Blank and constantly monitored by approved D-Class personnel. The object's new arrangement is to be imaged every time it shifts. New arrangements are fed into the facility's Class OT supercomputer. Division Chief is to be notified of all changes in current estimates every half hour. No personnel is to touch SCP-090 except under order blank blank blank. Access security level has been created for monitoring SCP-090. Non-access personnel found in the facility will be terminated. 090 is description. 090 is located and retrieved in blank blank on April 10th, 19 blank. Prior to retrieval, 090 had been located in a chamber at the nearby cathedral. 090 was removed, the cathedral burned, 6 monks and the priests were terminated. 090 has been located at Site Blank since the retrieval. Object's initial location prior to the cathedral is unrecorded. 090 is a black cubic structure, 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, made of an unknown ceramic material. Object is classified as indestructible following tests outlined in document 090-B, unattached. Each side is divided into 10,000 individual squares in similar arrangements to a Rubik's Cube, 100 segments per edge, each segment 2 millimeters wide. Each square has part of a design etched onto the surface. Etchings glow white. Unknown internal structure causes the alignment of a single row or column roughly every 2.8 seconds. Vague recordings of the object's alignments have been kept since 1242 CE, but those kept before 1533 CE have been lost. Modern technology has allowed the exact alignments to be imaged and recorded as well as studied. Segments are divided by a thin white line unless they are aligned correctly with the square directly adjacent to them. There are 22 correct alignments on this object's surface currently. See 25, 090, 090, 04D, unattached, for complete current object alignment. D 023016, 024016, 024015 is currently the only alignment of 3 adjacent segments of the surface of SCP-090. B 1023, 1024, 099, 024, 098, 024, and C 043, 077, 042, 077, 042, 076, 042, 075 are the 4 segmented alignments. There is also a 6-segment alignment. See document 090-B for research notes involving alignment effects. Full item completion has been hypothesized to cause an unparalleled disaster to occur. Addendum. Access security level personnel should see document 090-B. Document 090-A, Dr. Blank Blank experiment notes. Experiment 0012. Observation is going well. We've managed to develop a system to record and analyze the shifts in the cube almost as quickly as they occur. No correlation between shifts and any world events found yet. Experiment 0048. We observed a 6-segmented alignment today on the first side. It was noted and passed without incident. 2 hours later, a research assistant returned from the break room with news that a tsunami had occurred in the Indian Ocean and caused hundreds of thousands of deaths and extensive property damage. No correlation is currently known, but we will make note of it. Experiment 0150. After our 120th alignment on the 4th side of the cube and 120th incident report in the lab, we are designating the 4th side as local and will implement safety measures tomorrow. Staff are discouraged from making bets regarding the outcome of alignments. Experiment 0172. A 6-segment alignment was recorded this morning on the local side. As a safety precaution, Site Blank was evacuated. 2 hours later, a containment breach occurred, but resulted in no loss of life due to the evacuation. Object is determined to predict events, not cause them. First side designated as global, upgrade to Euclid status requested. Experiment 0240. We stepped up our experiments today, attempting to modify the cube itself. When D-Class personnel Blank attempted to make a shift, SCP-090 immediately created a 10-segment alignment of its own accord near the top left corner of the local side. Exactly 2 hours later, SCP-Blank broke containment and did expunged. Agents Blank and Blank were also lost during the incident. Recommend forced shift test of SCP-090 postponed. Upgrade to Keter status approved, as SCP-090 is obviously capable of causing events of its own accord. Object may be sentient. That is the end of SCP-090. On to SCP-091. SCP-091. Object class no longer anomalous and safe. Alright, no longer anomalous and is now safe. Special containment procedures. SCP-091 is to be stored in a standard containment locker at Site Blank. When 091 is not being tested, it is to be placed under combination lock. Since SCP-091 has shown no signs of resistance or tearing or damage greater than that of normal cardboard, great care should be taken when transporting it to and from testing sites. During testing, no one other than the subject should view 091. Those suspected of having seen 091 are to be administered Class B amnestics immediately, and all personal recordings or images in the possession of the subject, both print and digital, are to be destroyed to prevent reoccurrence. Description: 091 is a Scotties brand tissue box currently empty. Immediately upon observing 091, viewers report an overwhelming sense of nostalgia. Those affected begin reminiscing on times they were near 091, major events that occurred while it was present, or people and places that somehow relate to it. 091 was originally recorded in as an anomalous item and sent to Reliquary Site 44 until one of the members of the recovery team, Assistant Researcher Blank, while viewing a recording of her wedding from 1990 Blank, noted SCP-091 in the background of the film and noted a strong flood of nostalgic memories attached to it, including memories of 091 at the wedding itself, memories of 091 at the reception, memories of 091 during the honeymoon. A further interview with researchers Blank's ex-husband demonstrated that he too remembered 091 in all of those places and situations, again noting strong feelings of nostalgia and fondness for it. Further investigation found that several people who attended the wedding remember 091 being there, and the emotional effect. Others were asked to describe the wedding itself without being informed of 091. In these cases, they described the scene without including 091 until they questioned about it directly. At that time, they immediately underwent the same previously observed effect. Continued testing under other situations has continued to produce similar results. Administration of amnestics has proven ineffective at stopping the effect if the subject is allowed to view an image or recording of 091. Of note is the fact that each recorded instance of 091, the box pictured is full of tissues. End of SCP-091, on to SCP-092. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. The 3,125 instances of 092 are to be held in individual cases suitable for containing non-anomalous audio compact discs, CDs, and stored in standard inanimate object lockers at Sites 37. Each instance is to be individually numbered with permanent marker. Testing of instances of 092 is to be done in soundproof rooms. Only one instance of 092 may be examined at a time. Only D-Class personnel are to listen to previous unexamined instances of 092. Research proposals which involve non-D-Class personnel listening to instances of 092 require written approval from Site Command. The cadaver of SCP-092-B is not currently considered anomalous except by association, and is preserved in the morgue freezer at Site 19. Description: 092 is a set of 3,125 audio CDs, each labeled the absolute best of the fifth dimension, and marked with the names of the 31 performers who have at numerous times been part of the American singing group The Fifth Dimension. Each instance of 092, when played in a standard CD player, will result in distinct anomalous effects upon all individuals within hearing range. The anomalous phenomena will last 72 minutes, the standard duration of audio CDs, during which time listeners will be unable to leave hearing range or shut off the CD player or otherwise interrupts its function. As well, when the anomalous phenomena finishes, all surviving listeners will engage in synchronized vocalizations of the phrase, "Wow, that is really cool." Synchronized vocalizations have been observed in non-Anglophones, pre-verbal infants, unconscious individuals, paralyzed individuals, and individuals physically incapable of speech due to laryngeal, lingual, and/or buccal damage. The anomalous properties of each instance of 092 are thematic and conceptually linked to the number 5, dimensions, and/or the members of a fifth dimension. As of blank blank blank, 871 instances of 092 have been assessed and their anomalous properties formally described. See document 092W83 for a full list or below for a representative sample. The following is the representative sample. Instance 028. Anomalous property. Listeners experienced quintuple vision for all moving objects. Instance 041. Anomalous property. Listeners' bodies exude pentagonal crystals of element boron, chemical element number 5. Crystals cease materializing upon conclusion of CD but do not dematerialize. Instance 042. Anomalous property. Listeners' bodies exude pentagonal ingots of element manganese, chemical element number 25 or 5 to the power of 2. Ingots cease materializing upon conclusion of CD but do not dematerialize. Listeners succumb to acute manganese poisoning within 24 hours. Instance 043. Anomalous property. Listeners' bodies exude pentagonal nodules of elemental cesium, chemical element number 55. All listeners killed by cesium burns within 8 minutes. Instance 079. Anomalous property. Listeners become psychologically 5 years old. Physiologically, sorry. Instance 080. Anomalous property. Listeners become physiologically 5 weeks. 080. Listeners become physiologically 5 months old. 081. Listeners become physiologically 5 weeks old. 082. Listeners become physiologically 5 days old. 087. Listeners spontaneously become 5 months pregnant. Pregnancies spontaneously miscarry upon conclusion of CD. In initial tests, all male listeners succumb to massive internal hemorrhaging within 10 minutes, as do 3 female listeners. Surviving female listeners succumb to organ damage within 4 days. Post-mortem genetic analysis shows that all fetuses are identical and not related to the listeners. 126. Listeners experience unbearably painful facial spasms, characterized by consistent chewing or biting motions. Symptoms of trigeminal neuralgia caused by inflammation of the 5th cranial nerve. During initial test, all listeners batter themselves into unconsciousness against the walls of the testing chamber in attempts to escape the pain. 175. Listeners' bodies are pentasected radially, producing 5 disconnected segments which remain alive and mobile. 176. Listeners' bodies are pentasected laterally, producing 5 disconnected segments which remain alive and mobile. 177. Listeners' bodies are pentasected longitudinally, producing 5 disconnected segments which remain alive and mobile. 178. Listeners' bodies are pentasected axially, producing 5 disconnected segments which remain alive and mobile. 200. Listeners are transported to a site on the surface of Himalaya, 5th most massive moon of Jupiter, 5th planet from the Sun. Listeners are returned upon conclusion of the CD, but succumb to the combination effects of hypothermia, hypoxia, and radiation poisoning within 3 hours. Footnote here says, Requests have been made to use 092-200 to send exploration teams equipped with environmental suits to Himalaya. Approval is pending. End of footnote. 256. Listeners are converted into two-dimensional forms. 271. Listeners spontaneously lose 5 teeth each. Teeth do not regrow after conclusion of CD. 272. Listeners spontaneously lose all but 5 teeth each. Teeth do not regrow after the conclusion of the CD. 273. Listeners spontaneously lose 5 fingernails each. Fingernails do not regrow after conclusion of CD. 274. Listeners spontaneously lose 5 toenails each. Toenails do not regrow after conclusion of CD. 278. Listeners spontaneously grow 3 extra eyes each, for a total of 5 eyes. Extra eyes do not dematerialize upon conclusion of CD. Eyes are functional and are the same color as listeners' original eyes. There is a footnote here, after a total of 5. D092-7714, who had lost an eye in a fight prior to entering Foundation custody, grew 4 extra eyes when listening to SCP-092-278. End of footnote. 279. Listeners experience topological deformation so that their height becomes the circumference of their weight and vice versa. Deformation reverts at conclusion of CD. This appears to be an exchange between the listener's dimension of height and dimension of width. 285. Listeners sneeze 5 times per minute for the duration of the CD. 286. Listeners belch 5 times per minute for the duration of the CD. 287. Listeners hiccup 5 times per minute for the duration of the CD. 288. Listeners cough 5 times per minute for the duration of the CD. 315. Listeners find themselves within the 2010 Lars von Trier film Dimension, where they are able to interact with the setting but not affect actions of the characters. Since Dimension is only 27 minutes in duration, the events within the film repeat 2.74 times. There's also a footnote here. Although SCP-092 was taken into Foundation custody on blank, von Trier began production of Dimension in 1980s, with the intention of continuing for 30 years. SCP-316. Listeners find themselves within the 1993 EastEnders Doctor Who crossover Dimensions in Time, where they are able to interact with the setting but not affect the actions of the characters. Since the two parts of Dimensions in Time are only 13 minutes in total duration, the events within the episode repeats 5.69 times. 317. Listeners find themselves within the 1963 film Moi in Kotaro Dimensioni, where they are able to interact with the setting but not affect the actions of the characters. 397. Listeners experience random moments in the life of Alan Shepard, the 5th man to walk on the moon. 399. Listeners experience random moments in the life of James Monroe, the 5th President of the United States. 400. Listeners experience random moments in the life of Mackenzie Bowell, the 5th Prime Minister of Canada. 401. Listeners experience random moments in the life of Edward Seaga, the 5th Prime Minister of Jamaica. 402. Listeners experience random moments in the life of Sharon Singh, the 5th Prime Minister of India. 403. Listeners experience random moments in the life of Helen Hayes, the 5th winner of the Academy Award for Best Actress. 466. Listeners are physically transformed into members of the original lineup of the 5th Dimension, as they were at the time of the group's establishment in 1966. 467. Listeners are physically transformed into the members of the original lineup of the 5th Dimension, as they were at the time of the original group's dissolution in 1975. 468. Listeners are physically transformed into members of the original lineup of the Fifth Dimension as they were at the time of the group's reunion in 1990. 469. Listeners are physically transformed into the members of the original lineup of the Fifth Dimension as they are today. Listeners who transform into Ron Tonson, 1933 to 2001, resume their original forms after the conclusion of the CD but do not resurrect. When an instance of SCP-092 is inserted into the CD drive of a personal computer, its files can be accessed without triggering the anomalous effects. Examination of the files indicate that each CD has different content. All content is audio material by or pertaining to the Fifth Dimension and its individual members. In addition to all known commercially released songs, files containing live performances, practice sessions, auditions, media interviews, and personal conversations. Acquisition log. On May 5th, blank, an unidentified man, henceforth SCP-092-B, carrying 2 suitcases, approached front gate guards at Site 19, and stated that he wished to surrender himself and his anomalous creations into Foundation custody. The contents of his suitcase were confiscated and classified SCP-092. SCP-092-B was transferred to Site-37 for interrogation. During the interview, 092-B revealed the thematic connections, 5 dimensions in the 5th dimension, between all instances of SCP-092 and then committed suicide. Access requires Level 4 clearance or higher. Transcript of statement made by SCP-092-B upon arrival at Site-19. Sir, this is private property. You can't... Guard. Sir, this is private property. You can't... 092-B. This is the secret Foundation site, right? Guard. You can't come here come in here, sir. You're the SCP Foundation, and I'm a failure. What was that, sir? You're the SCP Foundation, and I'm a failure. I think I'm clever, but I'm not. I'm a stupid, boring, neckle-turny hack who thinks that money and cheap puns can take the place of talent and inspiration. I'm tasteless, I'm dull, I'm incompetent, I have no sense of style, and the only reason I'm not an art criminal is that nothing I've ever made is even close to being art. You can secure me and you can contain me, but no one can protect me. Please take me and my anomalous garbage into custody. At this point, guards summoned backup. SCP-092-B repeated the statement verbatim until he was taken into custody. Excerpt from transcript of SCP-092-B's interrogation session number 2. Interviewer. Yes, we understand about the fiveness, thank you. That's been most helpful, but we were wondering what you could tell us about how you made these. 092-B. I just wanted to be cool, you know? I really did. I thought, well, I had my inheritance, my collection, and there was the estate, and the abandoned museum, and so much stuff went together, and that wasn't that tough, and look, my ideas were better than yours. They were. I know they were. No, they're not. Nobody's impressed by stupid, facile wordplay. It's not even good wordplay. It's kindergarten-level paranomasia. Oh, look, 5 dimensions. What other thing can you think of that comes in 5? I'm worthless. I'm worthless. Better than my ideas? There's no deeper meaning to what I did. It's all just superficial Pentomkin village crap-pumping imitation shit into the river of human achievement. It's Stein's fucking Oakland, and I don't even fucking understand those fucking illusions. I'm an uninspired wannabe. I'm boring. I'm a useless hack with no fucking imagination. I've wasted and ruined miracles. I've squandered so much raw material that better people could have done so much with. I'm not cool. I never will be. I'm really sorry about this mess. These aren't my arms. At this point, SCP-092-B seized his own head with both his hands and ripped it off his neck, killing himself instantly. And that is the end of SCP-090. Hello, everyone. In the actual stream, this continued, but it continued for another 2 hours. The next SCP is 2 hours long. So, I'm cutting it off here so that I'm actually able to take a break on the day that I'm recording this instead of doing a 2.5 hour one, destroying my voice, and then going to the next one. So, the next video will release tomorrow, and yeah. If you like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Also, on another note, all the gaming content will be on another channel from here on. So, yeah.